All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Cochrane Committee of the Whole meeting for September 16th, 2024. I shall call this meeting to order. First order of business is to set an agenda for the evening. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda from one of my colleagues up here? Councillor Reid.
I'll also move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
All right, all in favor of the agenda as presented? That is passed unanimously. Next item is the approval of the previous minutes. Looking for somebody who's done it. Okay, Mayor Janung.
Happy to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
All right, we have a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor? Carried unanimously. And that leads us right into delegations. Our first delegation is Rocky View Foundation, and Mr. Chris Rowe is going to be speaking with us.
Good evening. My name is Chris Rowe, and as CAO, I am honored to represent Rocky View Foundation, an organization dedicated to providing affordable housing solutions in the Rocky View region. Today, I want to provide you with a bit of an update on some of the progress we've been making on a few projects, share some of the challenges that we're facing in affordable housing in this region, recount a couple stories, and discuss some of our plans for the future. For those of you that might not be that familiar, Rocky View Foundation is the housing management body for the Rocky View region. That includes Cochrane, Airdrie, Crossfield, Arikana, Bicycle, and Rocky View County. This past year was an exciting year for us. Just over a year ago, we opened our third supportive living seniors lodge in Airdrie, Abriel Place. We purchased a Hampton Inn that had closed down during COVID, and was able to transition that into 93 senior living lodge units, adding to our portfolio, which is now over 233 units, and in addition to that is 84 apartment units for seniors. Also in 2023, we took over the delivery of the Rental Assistance Benefit Program on behalf of the government of Alberta. We were able to see the client base increase from 60 to 70 people to now over 130 people, and increase of several hundred thousand to 1.1 million in funding from the province. We continue to want to see that grow, as it's an incredible program for our residents. And then we've also had the chance in 2023 and 2024 to pursue new funding opportunities for new projects. We're still hopeful on a few of them. We were successful in a small grant from CMHC for a project in Bragg Creek. If you are on media or news at all nowadays, affordable housing is obviously something that is there all the time. And oftentimes, sometimes it's simplified. I just want to raise awareness of some of the challenges that we see on a day-to-day basis from people walking in through our doors or phoning. The first thing is rental market pressures. This is obviously a big part of what we see, and that is a large part due to vacancy rates. In 2020, in our region, vacancy rates for rentals was about 6.6%. In 2023, it's 2.6%, and it's probably even tighter now. Most economists agree that you're probably in that 5 to 8% is the best neutral market. It keeps landlords engaged in the market. It keeps enough pressures off the rental rates to ensure that the rates aren't skyrocketing for tenants. So with that being at 2.6% or even tighter, it's added a lot of pressure to the rental market. Another area we see quite common is income versus housing costs. This is talked a lot about in media. And in Alberta alone, 22% of households are in core housing need. That's talked about a lot. What that means is if for low to middle income families, economists agree about 30% or less should go towards housing. Anything more, then budget constraints begin to come in and really tighten things up. And so that 22% means that they're spending more than 30% in housing. We'll see people come in with 40, 50, or 60% of their income going towards housing. We're also seeing the challenge of an aging population. The majority of our rental stock in our region is not senior specific. With an ideal dream of aging in place, this hinders that, as there's not enough barrier-free or universal design in our marketplace for rentals specifically for our seniors. And then, of course, something that's talked about a lot is just not enough housing. Though in Cochrane and Airdrie and in this region, there's lots of development, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, supply is not keeping up with demand. As I talk to my team about this often, we can look at these things, but behind all the percentages are people, and behind all the statistics are stories. And I want to just share a few with you that we get to make a difference with. I'm not going to share all these stories. Sufficient to say that we get to see resident and tenant feedback, and even more so some families that come back and talk to us about just the different outcomes that they're seeing in their loved ones' lives. We're seeing improved mental health and improved physical health. We're seeing connections to communities. We're seeing an increase in independence. And these are just incredible outcomes, and we get to take part of every day. But the most important thing that we do provide is a home, and that's a big part for those incomes. I want to just quickly draw your attention to this story. We had an individual who had grown up in rural Alberta in this region. He had worked hard, had family in the area until they all moved away, the siblings and all that, was married, worked all his life. His wife unfortunately passed away, and he continued to work into his 70s and got to a point where he couldn't work anymore. And unfortunately, he had to stop working, and he had to rely solely on his government pensions. It was about springtime when he realized the government pensions wasn't going to cover his rent that had just increased. And so he had to make a hard decision. He decided that he was going to move from the place that he had to move out of and move into his car for the summer and the fall, and hopefully save up some money and make a plan once the temperature started dropping. And that happened. And in the fall, it didn't get any easier. He faced the two biggest problems that we see in housing in our area is if he could find a place, availability, he couldn't afford it. And but just through some circumstances, he got in contact with one of our lodges and talked to our team there. And he phoned up and he asked that first dreaded question, do you have anything available? And we did have units available. And then he asked the second most dreaded question, what's it cost? And our team got to take him through the rent geared to income model that we have, the affordability model. And he quickly realized that he could afford this place. He came down quickly, took a tour of the place, fell in love right away. And within a few short weeks, he had moved out of his car and into one of our lodges, and jumped into the community, jumped into the activities. He quickly realized his new neighbors couldn't get to some of their medical appointments and to some of their shopping appointments. And so the car that he'd been living in prior to that point, he was now using for his new neighbors to drive them around to pay it forward. It's just one of many stories that I could share of just of making a difference and the life impact. And as we look forward, we want to tell more of those stories, because sometimes those stories don't turn out super well. And as we want to tell some of those stories, more stories in the future, kind of a two parts of our plan moving forward is a capital maintenance plan. This plan is really just to make sure that our existing assets really continue to be high quality and be sustainable into the future. So we're putting together a comprehensive plan to make sure that happens. And the next plan is to develop more units, to develop more communities, to build partnerships, pursue funding opportunities, and look at acquiring more units. Affordable housing is not just about providing shelter. It's about creating opportunities for a better life. The work we do at Rocky View Foundation is crucial for building stronger, more resilient communities. If you hear anything tonight, hear this. We don't do it alone. We don't do it alone. Our story that we shared here and the stories that we could share is not just Rocky View Foundation stories. It is the stories of Cochrane's and all the communities and municipalities we partner with. I want to say really clearly tonight, we thank you for your continued support and just your this community support and the communities that we serve support to see stories like this happen. I believe that that together we are making a lasting difference in the lives of many, and we're building a brighter future for Alberta. I want to thank you for taking the time for hearing this presentation.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Let's move into questions. Who is first? Councillor Flowers.
Chris, I just want to say thank you on behalf of council for all the hard work you put in. Chris has just been there a short time, and as the rep for this committee, I see him in action trying to modernize the group and get funding in place, and I know it's not an easy task, but suddenly he's an expert. Took over from the CAO who retired recently and is doing a fabulous job. Unfortunately, we didn't get the funding for our Big Hill Lodge, but we're going to keep working on it.
Not yet.
My question is around the rental assistance program.
Yes.
Cochrane has really high rents, and I'm wondering how many people are accessing it and what the wait list is like.
So I should have had those exact numbers with me. I apologize. I can get those numbers to you and you can report on that. But we have approximately 170 people on our wait list right now. And to be honest, it probably grows every day. Yeah.
Yes, I know it's a challenge. We have a lot of people in need, and the funding's gone up, but still not quite as high as it needs to be.
Not at all, no.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Chris. I just had a couple of questions, not knowing as much about your organization as Councillor Flowers does, which is an understatement. Just briefly, I guess, ballpark, how are you funded and percentage-wise? Is it how much from the community, how much from the province? And then also just Cochrane specific, I never realized Evergreen Manor was part of the portfolio in Cochrane. I knew about Big Hill Lodge. What's the current plan for, I don't know, life cycling those out? I know the Big Hill Lodge a little bit because we talk about it so much, but Evergreen Manor, is it the same situation there? Or?
Yeah. So the majority of our funding comes through our rents. I don't have the exact percentages. I think about 70% of our funding comes through our rents. The next largest percentage of funding comes through our requisition, and that's through our municipalities. We also get a lodge assistance program funding for the lodge program from the government of Alberta. That's for eligible units. It's $20.50 per day per unit, which has increased just recently. So that's important. And your second question was
Cochrane specific, the two different places in Cochrane you mentioned in the slides.
Yeah. So
how are they doing life cycle wise, and what's the plan, I suppose?
Yeah. So Evergreen is in fairly good shape. We're continuing to lobby the government for capital repairs and maintenance. That is a government-owned building which we operate. We are always lobbying the government for those funds and those finances. We haven't seen a lot of additional funding for that. I just want to be careful here. I work with different levels of government, so I don't want to trash anybody. But yeah, we need some more funding for those things, and that's really preventative maintenance, so we can get ahead. We don't want a roof leaking. We want a roof repaired and replaced when it needs to be repaired, or windows or whatever. So Big Hill is. We're looking at a replacement plan for that currently, and been working on that for a number of years. We're hopeful this last round of funding through the government of Alberta for HPP, which is the Affordable Housing Partnership Program. There were 66 million. There were 75 projects that applied for it. 8 projects got approved. 52 went to just 2 projects. Yeah, there was a lot of funding available in this last round, but we're continuing to apply and try to, you know, see what different models we can look at as well, if we can't get HPP money.
Okay, thank you. You brought me one more question with,
Yeah.
with something like the Big Hill Lodge when we're looking to build the next one. Is that municipality provides the land and Alberta government funding sources you just mentioned provide the capital for the actual building itself? Is that the model?
Yeah, so the model nowadays is you know, it would be all three levels of government. So we would look at getting some CMHC funding as well. There'd be some municipal funding in there, you know, through a land grant or something like that, and HPP funding. So HPP, so Government of Alberta, funds up to a third of the project, and that's it. So there is a large amount remaining to get funded there.
I'll say, okay, thank you for that. You just brought me up to speed with what some around the table probably already know. And thank you for the presentation.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no
it.
worries. Thank you.
Over to Councillor Federico.
Thank you. I just have one question. We know that obviously our funding was denied. Are you trying any other creative ways to kind of approach this situation? Or is it just kind of apply and continue on? Or are there other, you kind of mentioned that there are other things that you're looking at. Can you kind of maybe elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so we have to be innovative in this space nowadays. I would say our biggest challenge in any type of project is funding. And the big announcements of federal or provincial governments of millions or billions of dollars, that's a lot harder to actually get in our hands. So being innovative is obviously our approach, and we have to be innovative. So we're looking at different partnerships, you know, different models that we could, revenue models that we can maybe maximize our funding so we can debt service more. So yeah, there's no answer today, but yeah, we're continuing to review and research, and we do a lot of reading at, you know, what's working in different jurisdictions to know if there's a way that we can pull some of that knowledge and wisdom onto our side.
Mayor Janan.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the presentation this afternoon. Councillor Wilson and Federico brought up a couple of things that I was wanting to touch on, and that's funding model. And I'm focusing my comments tonight mainly on the Big Hill Lodge. It's no secret around this room or in our community, this is something we needed years ago, and I know that you share that sentiment, and that we're not adversaries in this. We're collaborating to try and get this done together. I think Councillor Wilson, you touched on a good point. So the operating costs are shared amongst the partners of the foundation, but what I learned recently was that capital is something that you don't requisition for, and that even if Cochrane or the Big Hill Lodge would have been successful in the grant funding from the province, it wouldn't have covered the entire amount of the capital build. So that shortfall, whatever that would be, is either going to have to be raised through fundraising, which will take a period of time, or there could be a capital requisition to the communities.
That's
so. My question is, and I think I've answered my own question, is how can we as a community help? And if it's kind of a heads up to my colleagues that as we enter budget and we see the Rockview Foundation line item, and that is operating only, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if we are to see a Big Hill Lodge in the near future, I think this is my opinion, I think we're going to have to get on board with a capital requisition, which might actually mean we convince our partners in Rockview Foundation and the other communities to get on board with us, or find an innovative way of doing it alone with the couple. So I guess it's more of an education, and is that an accurate train of thought from
couldn't
myself?
have said it better myself.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's entirely true. And you know, the provincial funding does lack. When I say it's a third, it's a third up to a threshold, and so because the costs have gone up, and the model for the HPP grant, it's more like 25 to 27% of the project, not a third of the project. So yeah, innovative ways and looking at requisitioning capital and you know, partnering with our other communities is exactly what we need to do.
Well, and I think it's a heads up to my colleagues too, that if we could wait and see if we're going to get the provincial funding, then identify the shortfall in the build, and that's going to take X amount of time to fundraise for. It's my thought that we try and get that requisition for capital in place before or at the same time as we're being granted funding, so that we're on board and we know where the funding's coming from and we can get the lodge built as soon as possible rather than having to now find a funding mechanism. So my promise, I guess, to you and the community is that I will work with my mayor colleagues and councils and the other communities in the Rocky View Foundation and with yourself to try and convince the others that this is a plan that we should all be paying into, no matter where your lodge might be next. We heard Bragg Creek. I'm sure there's more needs in Airdrie as they continue to grow, or the other communities. So,
Yeah, I appreciate your support. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for your presentation. Just picking up on what the mayor was saying. So if I recall correctly then, so Cochrane contributed to the new lodge in Airdrie?
There was not a capital requisition. We had some capital savings for that, and that was done mainly through debt servicing. So we had a CMHC mortgage approved for it, which is a 50-year low-interest affordable housing mortgage, which was approved by all the councils, yeah.
The second question had to do with along the line of innovation. So you're talking about innovative opportunities as it relates to financing. What about the construction itself? There's some members of council and administration. We had an opportunity to see a project that was built in Toronto. And while it doesn't sound very attractive in terms of sea cans, but it was built out of sea cans. And having seen their project, I was really, really impressed with how the quality of the program and the housing that was made available to these families. Not only was it the promotion of it when we were there, was how quickly they fast-tracked it. I think they built it in, Drew might know better than I, but I think it was like 6 or 8 months. They built this whole structure. And it really was quite attractive. And I thought that, maybe rather than just looking at the standard kind of building, building another bricks and mortar kind of building, that there might be other innovative ways that are both faster and more cost effective in terms of being innovative. And I'm not sure if that is on your radar in terms of looking at opportunities in terms of construction, as opposed to just I shouldn't say just financing opportunities, but you know what I mean, like being innovative outside of the box in terms of the construction itself.
No, absolutely. I appreciate the comment. And in a former life, I worked in another affordable housing division. The project you're probably talking about got a rapid housing initiative through CMHC. You had to do these. So I've done modular housing.
Right.
We turn projects around in 8 to 12 months, where you're putting stuff up super quick and you're seeing changes right away. That's definitely another area that we're looking at. And the rapid housing, there's no current CMHC announcement coming down the pipe, but every few years they bring that back out. So that's
Thank you again for your important work and presentation tonight.
Councillor McFadden?
Thank you very much. Mr. Rowe, it's a pleasure to meet you. I had volunteered on the Rocky View Foundation a time or two, and so had the pleasure of working with Carol, and was always impressed by how well the Rocky View Foundation is managed and the important service that you fill. So congratulations and thank you for stepping up to the helm. I know you will not be bored in this role.
Absolutely.
Right. So my colleagues have kind of highlighted the Big Hill Lodge, and of course we were disappointed not to be able to get that grant to advance that solution of replacing the lodge. But and you did highlight in your presentation there, and I certainly see the growing need for more of the manor type of solution. And so is there a solution in play to perhaps develop more manors within your sphere?
Absolutely, yes. No announcements, but when it comes to projects like this, Big Hill or affordable housing, manors, all these different projects, my take on it is get as many irons in the fire. Because you don't know where the funding is going to come. So we have projects. A lot of them are just in their initial stages, but talking about land acquisition or land grants in different communities. We have land in Bragg Creek. Looking at how we can do more, even in different areas here in Cochrane. So yes, it's definitely on our radar. And when I said we want to do more, build more, is obviously. Big Hills is a big part of that and a big focus on that, but that's not the only one. We want to continue to develop as many opportunities as we can.
and I haven't had a chance to tour it or to see it yet, but the renovated hotel in Airdrie, I mean, congratulations on that. I know
Thank you.
you came in through that, but and to my colleague's point, like, I really thought that was an innovative solution, and yeah, so I'm glad to hear you're just keeping open ears and to all the different type of opportunities that might be out there. So then I guess kind of reflecting on the mayor's point that, you know, if the municipality wants to be ready to support this growing need, and our demographics and our stats are all pointing to this growing need that we have to take seriously sooner rather than later. And the mayor identified that we might need to start supporting a capital requisition. So my question kind of comes through is, over the years I've seen the Rockview Foundation requisition has always been like minimal increases, which from a taxpayer's point of view is, I think, always reflected that we're getting like full value for every dime out of those requisitions. But are you looking at a different strategy on both your operational requisition and then perhaps also advocating for a capital requisition as well? Are we going to be seeing perhaps a change in strategy there?
Yes, yeah, we'll be looking at a two-pronged approach to the requisition for sure. One is that's just as you are aware, being connected with a Rocky View Foundation. One is board approval. One is the capital side has to be approved by every municipality. So there's a bit of a different approach to that. But yes, so that's what we're looking at as well.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and it fits a need. We always go through the economic cycles when you're like, man, why didn't we address affordable housing when we had the chance? And then the cycle switches and, focus on it so much anymore. But I think, we really do need to start looking ahead, especially, the growth pressures, the housing pressures, across the country, but also in particular in the Cochrane context when we're seeing such high growth pressures and that affordability press really seems to be increasing. So I guess all of that to say, thank you for stepping up into the role. I'm sure we'll keep you busy, and I'm looking forward to partnering and helping assist you with as many wins as we can get.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you for indulging me one more time. As I sit here thinking about the financing we were talking about, it still didn't quite add up for me. I agree with what Councillor McFadden just said about helping you any way we can with the Big Hill Lodge. So actually having a new Big Hill Lodge come to fruition, if I understand it right, the best case scenario for us would be a 1/3 CMHC, so federal contribution, a 1/3 provincial or HPP.
So yeah. I don't want to get into the weeds here, but I'm a finance guy, so I'd love to. But yeah, so their threshold, HPP, so Government of Alberta, $255,000 per unit. So that's and then 33% of that. So our per unit cost, because costs of construction have gone up, is well over $255,000 now. So the last Altus costing we got, it was closer to $400,000. So you can see the shortfall there. CMHC is all about debt servicing, so there's no one component to it. We could technically get approved up to probably 90-95% financing. The difficulty with that is that's huge debt servicing. So yeah, but that's not fund, or that's not grants. That's mortgage. Yeah.
Thank you. And then the other part that I guess we didn't talk about was the actual land itself. Is that, so in the Airdrie example, the municipality didn't have to contribute any land because it was already there. You're turning an old building into it. In Cochrane's context, it's more likely that we'd be also looking at land from the Cochrane perspective. That's what we're supplying essentially. That's one of the things. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for clarifying all that for me. Appreciate it.
Okay, anything else from council? Anything from administration? Would a presenter like to add any final words?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's been great. So next up on the agenda is the Willows Land Use Amendment, and we have joining us Ms. Anna Carrico.
Deputy Mayor Nagel, I just wanted to advise council that the live streaming is currently not working. It's an issue between YouTube and our contracted service provider, so it's nothing that we can actually do anything about. We are recording, and so therefore the meeting will be uploaded later on once the service is available.
Okay. So we're not procedurally required to pause the meeting or anything?
No, there's no requirement for the meeting to be live streamed, just that it's available to the public to attend.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, carry on.
Okay. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, and members of council. This evening I am here to present an update to Bylaw 18-2024, which is a land use amendment in the community of the Willows. This application, again, is for a land use amendment, which will amend mapping in the land use bylaw. The application may also require amendments to the Willows of River Heights neighborhood plan, as one of the land use concepts the applicant is seeking council feedback on involves infilling a wetland, which policy in the neighborhood plan originally intended to preserve. This application was originally submitted in June of 2023, and in October of 2023, the applicant held a public open house to answer questions and gather initial feedback from residents. In April of 2024, the application went forward to the Committee of the Whole for information. On April 22nd, the application received first reading with a public hearing date set for May 13th. At the public hearing, council received a presentation from the applicant as well as presentations from members of the public. Feedback received from the public prompted the applicant to create a second land use concept for consideration by council, which is the purpose of this second Committee of the Whole meeting. The applicant is requesting council feedback on both the original land use concept and the new concept, both of which will be detailed in this presentation. Council feedback will inform which concept the applicant brings forward to second and third reading. This application relates to lands in Willows West, which are outlined on the community map here. These are some of the last lands in the Willows to be developed and will facilitate completion of the community. Development in the Willows is guided by the River Heights Area Structure Plan approved in 2011, which provides high-level policy guidance for how the community will be developed, and the Willows of River Heights Neighborhood Plan approved in 2012. The purpose of a neighborhood plan is to provide an overarching plan for the community in more detail than is provided at the Area Structure Plan level and provide policy guidance for subsequent applications. The subject lands in Willows West did already receive land use in 2014, and some amendments to the land use took place in 2018 and 2022. In response to changing market and environmental conditions, the applicant is now requesting further amendments to the land use, which is the purpose of this application. This is the current land use concept from the Willows of River Heights neighborhood plan and indicates the land use that was originally planned for the community. The concept shows 2 wetlands to be preserved in the neighborhood, including one off of River Heights Drive, which is in the subject area for this application, with high-density multi-unit housing proposed to surround the wetland. As mentioned, when the Willows neighborhood plan was written in 2012, 2 wetlands were identified to be protected and retained as environmental reserve, titled Wetland 80 and Wetland 91, which are shown on this map image from 2012. Wetland 80 was classified as a Class 4 wetland, and Wetland 91 a Class 3 wetland, with Wetland 80 indicated as the largest and most productive wetland in the plan area at the time of writing the neighborhood plan. As the communities of the Willows, Rivercrest, and River Heights have advanced and urban development has occurred surrounding the wetlands, water flow to the wetlands has been reduced. Both wetlands are in the same catchment area and fed through surface water, so with the reduced water flow they are receiving, they have been drying up. The water levels do fluctuate depending on precipitation. Understanding the current environmental conditions, the applicant sought Alberta Environment's approval to infill Wetland 80 to provide further residential development in the community. This is the land use concept that was presented to council at the original Committee of the Whole meeting, as well as first reading and the public hearing. The concept proposes to develop medium-density housing in the center of the plan area, with park space integrated on both sides, which will provide pathways, amenity space, and a physical buffer between existing residences in the Willows and the new proposed development. This concept also redesignates a few small parcels in the south of the plan area down here, which will help support the planned Alta-Link realignment. This proposal is predicated on the infill of Wetland 80, which is within the area currently zoned community service. I did want to note that the original application you saw included a segment of affordable housing, which was to receive funding through the CMHC. The funding is now no longer available, so while this concept adds the opportunity for more housing options in the community, there is no longer an affordable housing component. The Alberta Wetland Policy dictates that any activity that may impact a wetland requires either a Water Act approval or a Code of Practice notice. This means that in order to proceed with any development on the future environmental reserve lands that contain Wetland 80, Water Act approval from Alberta Environment must be obtained. The province granted approval to infill Wetland 80 for the purpose of residential development on May 18, 2023. The approval was informed by a wetland assessment and impact report that was prepared for the applicant in 2022. The Wetland Impact Assessment Report used in the province's approval identified and classified on-site wetlands, evaluated the wetlands, assessed potential impacts to the wetlands as a result of development in Willows West, and described mitigation actions. If this land use concept is supported by council, the applicant is proposing to provide replacement of Wetland 80 through an in lieu payment based on the wetland value established in this report. With the removal of the community service parcel containing the former wetland, the applicant is proposing to integrate new public park and amenity space as illustrated in the draft concept shown on this slide. Although the wetland is currently on privately owned land, it has been informally used by residents as a skating rink in the winter months. The applicant is proposing a floodable sports amenity in the new park space, which can be a safe and publicly accessible skating rink for the community that is not currently present and would not otherwise be available. There is also a public playground proposed in the west portion of the plan area, which would provide another additional new amenity. The park space located on the east side of the plant area will serve as a buffer between the existing residences in the Willows and the proposed medium-density residential. The pathways shown in these concepts would also provide connectivity through the plant area and neighborhood. Again, the details of Land Use Concept 1 were all presented to Council at the public hearing in May of this year. At the public hearing, Council received a presentation from the applicant detailing the history of the wetlands and the reasoning behind the development proposal, as well as presentations from residents for which opinion was overwhelmingly in support of preserving Wetland 80. Council heard from 24 members of the public who spoke to the environmental, recreational, and social value Wetland 80 brings to the community. Main themes from the public presentations included the loss of habitat and species that infilling the wetland would result in, that the wetland was a primary selling feature when purchasing homes in the area, and removing it would change the area residents bought into, that the proposal to remove the wetland goes against existing town policy, and the perception that removing the wetland will decrease surrounding property values and result in a decreased sense of privacy. There were also concerns over drainage and how removing the wetland would impact surrounding development. In response to this feedback, the applicant provided a second land use concept for consideration by council this evening. The applicant is seeking feedback on both this and the original land use concept to inform which concept to bring forward for second and third reading. This proposal retains Wetland 80, which is intended to become environmental reserve when the lands are subdivided. The Municipal Government Act dictates that all environmental reserve land must be left in its natural state or be used as a public park. If this concept were to be approved by council, the wetland would remain in its natural state and the ER lands would be transferred to town ownership when subdivision occurs. While residents currently access the private lands that contain the wetland for skating in the winter, for safety purposes, the town would not permit skating when the lands become public, and no surrounding infrastructure for a skating rink could be developed due to the ER designation. This land use concept proposes medium-density housing around the wetland to the west and south, with park space in the northeast corner of the subject lands. This option provides more flexibility in housing form than the current RMX land use and retains the wetland as a natural feature, but does not include the park space behind existing residences that Concept 1 provides to compensate for the removal of the wetland. Concept 2 also rezones the utility corridor to the west to community service, and 3 small parcels, again, these ones, the same as Concept 1, to help accommodate the planned Alta-Link realignment. This slide presents a summary of the impacts of both Land Use Concept 1 and 2. Through Concept 1, Wetland 80 and the surrounding habitat will be permanently removed, with compensation being provided through in lieu payment. Through Concept 2, the wetland will continue to exist, but the surrounding conditions will likely result in it no longer serving a wetland function over time. While Wetland 80 has been informally used as a skating rink, it has been on private property, and if it were to remain and be designated as ER, skating would not be permitted. The amenity concepts proposed within the neighborhood plan provide as floodable sports amenity, which can act as a safe and publicly accessible skating rink in the winter months. The plan also proposes an additional playground that currently does not exist. The new land uses within Concept 1 add park space behind all of the existing residences in the Willows, whereas in Concept 2, there's residential zoning adjacent to most of the existing properties. Concept 1 allows more opportunity for diverse housing options, and Concept 2 offers the opportunity for some medium-density housing, but fewer units and in a more constricted space, which limits design opportunities. The location of park space in Concept 1 allows for added pathways and connectivity through the plan area, and in Concept 2, there would be fewer pathways, with the majority of green space being located in the center of the plan area. The resulting impacts of the current land use versus the impacts of land use in Concept 2 are not materially different, so they're not shown for comparison on this slide, but I will be touching on it shortly. Administration also completed an analysis on how each of these land use concepts aligns with existing town policy. The current municipal development plan, sustainability plan, council strategic plan, and River Heights area structure plan were all evaluated for policy relevant to this application. All of the documents have policy which relate to providing a diverse housing mix, physical connectivity and pedestrian pathway systems, providing a variety of recreational opportunities, and the preservation of ecologically significant areas, including wetlands. This table to the right outlines how each of the land use concepts responds to policy guidance compared to the current land use. Concept 1 increases housing diversity compared to the current zoning by rezoning the area to medium density housing and expanding the current developable land base. Concept 2 would increase housing diversity by a smaller degree, as there is a much more limited space and not as much opportunity to provide different housing forms. Concept 1 enhances connectivity in the neighborhood with the new design and orientation of park space, while Concept 2 would provide the same amount of connectivity as the land use that's currently approved. Concept 1 enhances community amenities by providing a new all-season amenity space and a new playground. Because Concept 2 wouldn't allow for public skating once the wetland transitions to environmental reserve, the neighborhood would be losing an amenity space they were previously taking advantage of. With the removal of Wetland 80, Concept 1 is decreasing alignment with policy advocating for environmental protection, acknowledging that the province is the body responsible for making development decisions on wetlands. Concept 2 maintains current policy alignment for environmental preservation, as Wetland 80 will remain as reserve land following subdivision and left in its natural state. So this slide will provide one last summary of the 3 land use scenarios that are to be considered by council. This is the approved land use that currently applies to the plan area. Under the current zoning, Wetland 80 would be retained and transitioned to ER, and the surrounding area would be developed as residential mixed housing. When the wetland transitions to town ownership, there will be no authorized skating in the winter months. Land use concept 1 proposes to infill Wetland 80 and comprehensively develop the area as medium density housing. There will be an additional park and 4-season amenity space that will not otherwise exist, additional pathway connections, and the rezoning of the small parcels to the south to accommodate the Ultalink realignment. Land use concept 2 would retain Wetland 80, and the surrounding area would be developed under the residential medium density zone. The applicant has advised that there will be little to no difference in the number of units provided under RMX versus RMD, but the RMD zoning provides more flexibility in the design and the orientation of units. As with the current land use, skating would not be permitted in the winter months, and like land use concept 1, concept 2 redesignates those few small parcels in the south of the plan area for the Ultalink realignment. Next steps for this application include council's consideration of second and third reading. Following council's feedback from this meeting, the applicant will proceed with their chosen option, which will be reviewed by administration and brought back to council for a decision. Once land use has been established, subdivision will occur, followed by development and building permits, and then construction completion estimated for 2026 to 2027. That concludes my presentation. I will now be joined by Mark Krasinski, our Director of Community Growth, to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Before we head into questions, can I just clarify what administration is looking for from council, since we don't normally make decisions in these meetings?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor Nagel. What we're really looking for is commentary from members of council as to a preferred concept that will inform the applicant's decision on which concept to proceed with in the second and third reading, if council would like to provide their opinions and discussion.
Okay, great. Who would like to share their opinion? Mayor Janung.
Happy to kick off the commentary, and I appreciate your question, Deputy Mayor, about how to proceed. This is kind of unknown territory for us in how we provide feedback, and my first comment is I really like this approach. I appreciate that we've heard something at a public hearing. It might be, well, we heard from, as you say, 24 people in our community that are really upset with the proposal, and then to working with the applicant and coming back with options and using the committee of the whole this way, I think is really good approach. So I appreciate that. I was going to get into a bit of commentary around, like, one of the options council has is to do nothing, which is to leave as is, but you touched on that at the very end, so I appreciate that. One question I have is in regards to the AltaLink realignment. If concept 2 were to proceed, does that allow for that realignment? Because I believe that impacts other communities to the south.
Through the chair, that is correct.
So yes, the AltaLink is taken care of?
Through the chair, yes, concept 2 would address the land use changes required that would help increase alignment with the AltaLink relocation.
All right, thank you. I guess what I like about the approach that's being taken with concept 2 is the preservation of the wetland. And what I think wasn't clear in the public hearing, and I think there might be a misconception with some of the landowners in the area, is if council were to choose the option to do nothing, something is still happening there. So I just wanted to put that out in the public commentary that regardless of what decision we make, and I guess if it's to do nothing, there is going to be some development in that area. This is more of a comment than a question, obviously, but as with most decisions that we are faced with, there's no right and there's no wrong here. There's pros and cons to each, and I guess while I would lean to the environmental aspect of this, of concept 2 and preserving the wetland, it's not the ideal setting to preserve the wetland into the future because of some of the development that's already occurred. That ship has sailed, and the waters that can be directed into a natural wetland through Alberta Environment are restricted to natural sources, not runoff from communities. Am I correct on that?
Through the chair, that is correct, Mayor General.
So we could be in a position down the road where we choose concept 2, preserve the wetland, everybody's happy today, but the wetland dries up and we're left with a different problem into the future?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. All right. At this point, I appreciate the approach, and I'm leaning towards I don't know if that's what you're looking for as a pro and a thumb up or down on which concept. I'm leaning towards concept 2.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct, Mayor General. We're really looking for commentary that can help shape the decision by the applicant on which direction they would like to proceed for second and third reading. So thank you for your insight.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. The mayor asked my first question, which was, there's no alternative way to get water into the wetland simply because of provincial legislation. That's what I just heard, that it's essentially going to dry up, it sounds like. I know obviously we can't predict the future, but the way it's been trending since 2012 is a slow evaporation of the wetland. Does that seem reasonable to think that it is going to dry up?
Through the chair, based on some of the reports that we've reviewed, we believe there is an indication that the wetland is it moving in the direction of failing, especially in relation to other wetlands we've seen in the vicinity.
Thank you. And you just confirmed with the mayor that there is no way to direct water to the wetland. That's outside of our control. That's an Alberta regulation.
Through the chair, there are some very specific regulations about how to direct water into a wetland, but as the Mayor Junong asked the question, directing stormwater directly into the wetland without significant additional investment and remediation efforts is not appropriate. I believe the applicant had tried previously and been directed to stop by Alberta Environment as well.
Those are very disappointing answers. Not that we control much of any of that, it sounds like, but it's disappointing nonetheless to me. And so as I sit here then, I appreciate the mayor just pointing out that there's 3 options before us. No option includes nothing happening there and absolute status quo because there's already zoning for houses to go in there. And so my next question is between what's the existing land use and concept 2. I had a little trouble. It looked like it was virtually the same except for the housing type might be slightly different. And the reason I'm asking this is I try to, when I'm making suggestions or when I'm making decisions up here, I've got 2 hats on. I've got the entire community hat on, and I've got the what if I were a resident living right there hat on that I'm thinking about. And with the if I was living right there, is it fair to say that the housing type, I think I heard, is likely to be more mixed and possibly more attractive to the neighbors that are currently living there with concept 2 rather than current land use? Is that too simple to say?
Through the chair, Councillor Wilson, the medium density land use would provide a greater range of alternatives to inform the development of the site. So that is correct. However, densities due to the physical restrictions of the site are unlikely to vary significantly between the 2 different land uses.
Right, I did hear that. Okay. And so in a nutshell, for me, if I've understood it all correctly, if I'm a resident living there, the 2 choices I have before me are would I like a park or would I like a wetland that's likely to dry up but we're not sure, are the 2 things that sit before us right now, and that's not real attractive. I suppose if I lived there, I would say I would probably appreciate the park option, but I heard loud and clear from the public hearing that there is a large number of people that would like it to remain in its environmental state. And so listening as I do, I would say that concept 2 appeals more to me right now, which is what we're sitting here trying to determine. So I guess that's my 2 cents.
If I may, through the chair, just because I just listening to this questioning, I think my recollection of the public hearing is as well that there was really some sensitivity from existing residents, and I think reasonably as to what their interface would be with this property after a potential change. And I haven't heard in the dialogue with council, which is the only reason I raise this, and I look for Mark to confirm this, is that in land use concept 2, a significant amount of those properties would have direct interface with the residential development, whereas in land use concept 1, I think that there is a green space or a public space that would serve as an interface there. So I just point that out as a distinction that I think would be meaningful if I think Councillor Wilson, like you said, if I put my resident hat on there, there's a pretty big difference between backing onto a park versus backing directly onto another residential development as well. So that's just something that I wanted to share. I don't know, Mark, if you have anything to add to that.
Through the chair, CEO Mike Derricott, that is correct. There could be development that would back onto existing residents under either the existing or concept 2. Of course, all of the setback requirements within the existing land use bylaw would still comply, but they would no longer back onto an undeveloped parcel.
That's an excellent point. I'm glad the CAO brought that up. Again, that was what I was thinking. If I was a resident living there and I had all this information in front of me, the concept 1 would be my preference, knowing everything that we know. I'm not sure if everybody that was at the public hearing understood the consequences. I'm not sure. What I do know is that the overwhelming, maybe all the entire, everybody in the gallery seemed to propose or support the leaving it in its natural state. And so hopefully there's some more thought about this from the local residents. I guess the only other thought going through my head right now is that in a zoomed out, more Cochrane approach, what is better for Cochrane? It does seem that concept 1 with the increased connectivity and perhaps extra amenities is better for the community as a whole. But a lot to weigh, and I suppose I would still lean towards concept 2 provided tonight, although, like I said, I'm pretty gray on this. I'll let the others talk it out here. It's a lose-lose, it does sound like to me.
Over to Councillor Federico.
Thank you. Through Mr. Jericho to Mr. Krasinski. I just wanted to talk about the interface. So you said the interface from the existing plan, the current land use, to concept 2 is the same? Is that what I kind of heard?
Through the chair, Councillor Federico, yes, the interface between the existing residents and a residential medium density district as well as a residential MX district would be relatively similar. The closest that we probably have within a land use bylaw.
Yeah, like the current land use has already been approved is going to be the same as what's being in concept 2.
There is a slight difference. Through the chair, the land use that is being requested is residential medium density for a portion of it, and it is currently residential mixed use.
Okay.
Sorry, mixed.
With this new concept, was there any public engagement done with it? Has this gone back out to the residents, or is it just, something that was designed from the developer side, or just trying to gain kind of where the residents fit into in the picking of these 2 plans?
Through the chair to Councillor Federico, the new land use concept didn't go out for public engagement, as it was responding directly to the feedback that the applicant received from the public at the public hearing. The land use is still the same surrounding the wetland, so the change is just retaining the wetland versus infilling the wetland. So no, there wasn't direct public engagement on this concept specifically. Emails did go out to the public informing them of this meeting so that they can be advised and up to date on the current changes.
Okay, so I'll give you my opinion. I would vote to leave it the same at the current land use for right now until we can hear from the residents so that they also have an opportunity to give their opinion on what plan possibly might be better or impact them less. I'm not willing to give an opinion on concept 1 or concept 2 until I actually engage with the residents.
Councillor Flowers.
It is a dilemma. There's no right answer, I guess. There's not going to be any skating on any of the options, right?
Through the chair, Councillor Flowers, in concept 1, the applicant is proposing to construct a new 4-season amenity that will include basketball courts during the summer months and then a floatable skating rink in the winter, which would provide a skating amenity.
But then we would lose the wetland. With the goal being the wetland being preserved, I know that's what the people want, and the petition that was signed, that's really what people want. So I don't think they're going to be happy with the end result, but I do think the option 2 is the best choice considering everything that we've had in front of us. And I'm hoping that somehow the wetland will survive, and with new technology and new ways of dealing with the environment, somehow we can save it and make sure that it's there forever.
Councillor Reid.
Yeah, it is quite a dilemma. Wetlands are an important diminishing return or resource in terms of any community, and they're critically important. I guess from my perspective, I think it's as the mayor kind of suggested, it's choosing between 2 evils, so to speak. For me, I would prefer concept 1. I think if I were a resident in that area, having this additional information and being what it is, with the concern that wetland will dry up inevitably, it would be my take on it, that concept 1 would definitely be appropriate in terms of the pathways, the recreational use, the proximity of other homes to the current homes. I just think, as Councillor Wilson said, if you look back up what's best for all of Cochrane, and I think I feel that way for the residents of this community, having this additional information, that would be that's where I would go, concept 1.
Councillor McFadden.
Yes, thank you very much. This first question is for clarification. In all 3 of the options, proceed or concept 1 or 2, all of them have spoken to the Altalink alignment, correct? There is a solution for Altalink in all 3?
Through the chair, Councillor McFadden, in the event that neither Concept 1 nor Concept 2 were supported, then there's still ability for a Ultralink transmission line to go through. However, would not support the land use change that would help enable that. There is an option, of course, to work with the applicant if they desired to still proceed with second and third reading of the land use change solely for the 2 parcels impacted by the Ultralink realignment.
Okay, so staying in the current land use, we're gonna have to work with the applicant to find a solution for the Ultralink realignment still. Is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay. All right, I just want to understand that. And so, just thinking back, I was on council when the Willows application first came to council chambers. And one of the highlights, and I remember to this day, was how important the preservation of this wetland really was to the community, even way back when. So I wasn't surprised at all that when the proposal to remove the wetlands came forward, that we had such substantial public interest in preserving the wetlands. It's a really important feature to our residents, and importantly, I think 525 folks signed the petition, and we had such extensive public hearing on this item that I think is loud and clear that we value keeping the wetlands here. I certainly hear and have heard since the very beginning that their ability to preserve themselves in their current state is at risk, but what I really heard from the residents is they really want to keep the green space of that. And so I think even if the wetland changes in its nature due to the build out around it, as a green space, it is still highly valuable to the residents. And I think a lot of the residents, the folks that participated in the process, did hear the potential of different types of amenities to that, whether it was keeping it in the natural green space or the different amenities and connectivities that the developer has proposed. But for my lens, I think the community has spoken very loudly that they wanted to keep that, and so that's a priority for me. My challenge, I think, back to yourselves and the developer, is to come up with as much of a mitigating strategy and a buffer between the existing homes and the new ones that are going to be built out. You'd identify that there is going to be, the required setbacks there. So I would really ask that we get, creative in considering how we can mitigate negative impacts there. But I also wanted to flag that I highly agree with Councillor Fedeko that I view this as a substantial change to the application, and I think we really do need to ensure that we build in an opportunity for public feedback on this change. And so if that requires a second public hearing, I would certainly support this. I feel this is a substantial enough change that it does warrant allowing the public to communicate their feelings on this. So that's my lens at this time, and echoing Councillor Fedeko's thoughts, I'm looking forward to being able to hear back from our residents what they think of the proposed changes. Thank you.
So I believe everybody on council's had an opportunity to speak. I'm going to weigh in before doing round 2 of comments. So can you please clarify what the difference is between RMD and RMX for myself and anybody else who's watching the presentation?
Through the chair, I'd be happy to, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Nagel. So some of the primary differences between RMX zoning and RMD zoning is there is a ability to go to an extra 2 meters higher in building height. And the RMX zoning allows up to a maximum of 65 units per hectare, whereas RMD zoning has a range of about 35 units per hectare to 60 or to 95 units per hectare. So RMX actually falls right directly in the middle. As I mentioned previously, due to some of the physical constraints of the lot sizes and the land and the nature of how it remains for the development of the RMD, it is unlikely to result in significant increase in the number of units or density within the RMD zoning. Also based on conversations that we've had with the applicant, that's really to provide additional flexibility in how they design their development on the site, which could enable more units being adjacent to each other with a shared party wall than would be permitted in an RMX land use.
And the higher height, was that an RMX or RMD?
The higher height is in RMD and also comes with the ability for, if the applicant went to that height, for the development authority to request additional setbacks.
Okay. Having seen and been part of a number of public hearings over the past, I guess, year and a half in this general vicinity, I think people want us to pack less houses in, not more. And so I'm definitely on the housing style in favor of option 3, doing nothing. With regards to the actual wetland, I agree with something I think Councilor McFadden was touching on, that just a natural space, even if it is drying up, I think people just are happy with the natural space. But I would also just suggest that this kind of indicates a failure in our general policy, which I think this group has never really worked on, is our wetland policy. If we zoned, or past councils zoned to protect this wetland, and then what was built around it has destroyed the wetland, that means our wetland conservation has failed. And now the developer is telling us, well, what you approved actually didn't protect the wetland. So I think in future applications, we need to be looking for a different policy that actually ensures the wetlands we're trying to protect are being protected, because obviously we did not protect this one. Okay, so I'm an option 3 kind of guy. Mayor Janelle.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to clarify something. We're hearing about public engagement, and at all, I'm not trying to suggest that we don't listen to the public. I think we're all here. We've had the public hearing is what's generating this discussion. My question is, and I think I know the answer, but if the applicant were to do nothing or change nothing, the current land use, there is no obligation whatsoever to do any public hearing or any public engagement, because that ship sailed years ago when that application was first brought before the council at that time.
Through the chair, that is correct. There isn't public engagement required with the current approval in place.
So choosing to do nothing there is absolutely no public engagement in that. So really what we're faced with tonight is, or at second reading, is concept 1 is what the public hearing was about, and it was about filling in the land, or into the wetland. Concept 2 is a redesign, I guess, of the current approved land use. Is that a fair assessment of, other than the changing from RMX to RMD and the Alta-Link realignment, there's relatively nothing changing from status quo?
Through the chair, that's correct, Mayor Janong. The only thing I would add is that there would have been public engagement when the land use was put in place originally in either 2014 or 2018, when the current approved land use was approved. Right.
So the crux of my question is going to be that if council were to choose option or concept 2 and want more public engagement, is that an option? How does that work?
Through the chair, a second public hearing is not legislatively required, as the changes made to the application are in direct response to the feedback heard from the public hearing. However, council does have the ability to request another public hearing should they desire.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I believe Mr. Heineman wanted to hop in.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Nagel. I just wanted to share with council and pick up on some of the comments that the mayor was saying. I think land use concept number 2 is in direct response to the feedback that came at the public hearing. I think the community spoke, indicated the importance of this wetland and that space in particular, and wish to retain that. So in terms of the developer responding, and why one of the additional reasons we're bringing this before council and providing this in this form is council needs to understand, if the applicant had decided to not proceed with land use concept 2, they could have proceeded to, they have a stripping and grading application in right now. They could have proceeded with that stripping and grading application and began working on that property. We have residents who are very passionate about their communities, came to an open house or to a public hearing, heard about the potential of losing a wetland, spoke, voiced their concerns. Administration feels it's very important to bring this information forward. So if that did occur, that equipment was going out on site, the residents in that community had a clear understanding of what was going to happen on that property and didn't feel like, oh, okay, now we're losing the wetland. I thought we had spoken. So hopefully that provides a little bit of context of why this is here and the manner in which it is here. again, there are some important decisions that this will come back at a future council meeting for second and third reading, but we felt it was important to have this discussion and get council's feedback.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Those comments around the table really help formulate what I'm thinking, and that's that if there is a way to get to another public hearing, I think that would be very useful to me. From my lens, concept one is the preferred outcome here. If I were a neighbor living there, I don't live far from there anyway, as a Cochrane resident, concept one seems to be the preferred one to me, but I heard loud and clear from the gallery that they didn't want that. What I'm worried about is that gallery didn't understand the consequences before them. And with everything laid out on the table here, I would love to hear from people again which of these options they would like, because to me, one seems superior, and that's the one we're not choosing. So if there's a way to get to a public hearing, I just heard that potentially there would be if we went with land use concept 2. I think that's the way I would like to go. Would like to hear what others have to say about that opinion.
Councillor Fidego.
Through Mr. Durkow to Mr. Krasinski. I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Yes, I realize that obviously the developer could just go through and proceed, but keep in mind that a lot of people that have purchased homes in the Willows would have already known what to expect when they purchased back in 2018, 2014. A lot of them already knew the plan, right? Then the plan has shifted to concept 1. So then all of a sudden, a bunch of people, that's where people were upset because what they originally bought into had changed. Now I believe that we're coming forward with another concept, which I think actually if it goes maybe out to the public and to the community, you actually might actually receive quite a bit of support and a little cheering going on that you're actually looking at and protecting that wetland. The thing that I have a problem with is that just not having any public hearing, and we sit around the table and we're making that decision tonight and not allowing those people to come back. That's just not good in my opinion. I won't approve anything without a public hearing. So let's please have a public hearing and allow people with the opportunity to come back and speak, share their opinion, and you just might be surprised that it's not going to be negative. It actually might be positive, but not allowing them to talk at all, I don't think is the right way to approach this. And if anything, you're just going to get a bunch of pushback and blowback from the community that, once again, council is not really hearing the people that live there, and that's not how I want to proceed.
Okay, Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Councillor Wilson was saying. So if I understood you correctly, council has the authority to, and it won't contravene any processes or violate any of our bylaws in terms of being able to have a second public hearing on these proposed changes. Is that correct?
Through the chair, based on the conversations we've had internally, it's my understanding that no, we're not violating any processes if we request a second public hearing.
Yeah, I would support that request. I know we can't vote tonight, but if administration is looking for feedback, I think that there is some kind of consensus that might be the way to go forward in terms of being able to hear further from our residents, given what they now know, or what we now know, and they will then have available to them as in a way of additional information.
Through the chair, Councillor Reid, if I could add, I think for council's benefit, one thing to keep in mind with this is that the site in the area structure plan was also zoned for residential mixed use or mixed dwelling development, which in the multi-use development in the previous land use bylaw was the highest density zoning for this site. So there would have been that information available at the time of purchase by the residents, that the site was always intended for high density development, which these land uses are below. I would feel it's important to identify.
Okay, thanks for providing that information. Any further comments from council? Anything else from administration? Anything else from our presenters? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do you have everything you need from us? I guess is my last question to you.
Through the chair, I believe we have the information that we need to proceed, and we'll have to take this away and have some discussions with the applicant on how they'd like to proceed with the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we've been here for an hour and 15 minutes. Does anybody need a quick washroom? We're gonna take 6 minutes, come back 7:20. I just like round numbers. Well, my computer's clock is faster than that clock in here, so we may as well not sit around in awkward silence. Let's get back to it. Our next agenda item is community growth. Mark Krasinski is going to be giving us a presentation and introducing a few other people as well.
Okay. Good evening again, Deputy Mayor and members of council. Thank you for having me and the rest of my management team here for the presentation of Community Growth's 2024 mid-year report. I'm joined today by the Community Growth Leadership Team representing the respective departments: Justin Perrin, Manager of Safety Codes; Rob Auclair, Manager of Planning Services; and Nicole Hannay, the recently recruited Manager of Economic Development. Before I dive into the mid-year report, I want to ask you to please join me in welcoming Nicole as the new manager within Community Growth of Economic Development. Nicole is a born and raised Albertan whose first job was working on a local ranch. This experience solidified Cochrane as a special community for Nicole as she pursued her career and life ambitions. In addition to her grassroots Western heritage experience, Nicole has significant municipal government, economic development, and business development experience that will be invaluable in helping nurture, grow, and evolve Cochrane's economic potential now and into the future. Most recently, Nicole was employed as a business strategist with the City of Calgary, and before that as an instructor at SAIT, where she developed, managed, and sustained an innovative and experiential learning opportunity for the Faculty of Hospitality and Tourism Management. Academically, Nicole has a Master's of Food and Resource Economics from the University of British Columbia, a Bachelor of Economics from the University of Alberta, and an Architecture and Building Science diploma from SAIT. Welcome, Nicole. So as you're well aware, Community Growth has 3 departments within it: Planning Services, Economic Development, and Safety Codes. For 2024 to 2026, Community Growth established 3 primary objectives in the 2024 to 2026 budget process. Those were Envision Cochrane 2050, to ensure that Envision Cochrane 2050, our municipal development plan, is in alignment with Council's strategic plan and continues to advance on schedule and on budget. This will provide the community with the benefit of a structured and sustainable plan for growth and ensure the community's vision is realized. The second objective was to support and foster innovation and entrepreneurship in Cochrane with the Cochrane Station, Incubator Program, and other initiatives such as Smart Start that help entrepreneurs and local businesses thrive, innovate, and contribute to positively to our community's economic growth. The third objective was to implement risk mitigation strategies and resourcing plans to ensure organizational resiliency and business continuity, and to maintain and advance efficient and effective service levels that can consistently be relied upon by our partners in the development community and citizens of Cochrane. All these objectives are either in progress or on schedule for completion and or complete, which you will hear more about from each of my managers in their respective departments in this mid-year report for their areas. Please join me in welcoming Rob Auclair, Manager of Planning Services, who will walk you through the mid-year report for Planning Services, and we'll do questions for each component at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council. My name is Rob Auclair, and I am the Manager of Planning Services. And I'm pleased to be here tonight to share my mid-year RBA information with you. 2024 has been a busy year for planning. As of the end of June, we have received 137 development permit applications and are on track to complete approximately 270 development permits by the end of the year. This is a 150% increase from 2023. We have seen significant increase in secondary suites, which are projected to increase as the year progresses. We are anticipating over 100 suite applications. We have also completed 347 certificate of compliance applications and anticipate completing approximately 700, increasing the amount of compliance applications seen in 2023. At mid-year 2024, we have already surpassed the number of council reports from 2023. We're on track to bring approximately 100 reports to council by year's end. This is the 3rd year of increased reports to council. All this work has been completed by a total of 9 staff, which is a decrease in staffing levels from the previous 2 years. The Municipal Government Act dictates the allowable time that a development authority must, 1, deem an application complete, which is 20 days, and 2, provide a decision back to the applicant, which is 60 days. Planning Services uses this criteria to track how well we do against these timelines. As of mid-year, we are hitting our targets on approximately 72% of our applications for both deemed complete and date of decision. This speaks to the influx of work within the Planning Services, as I stated in the previous slide, as well as the reduction of resources that we have seen in the previous 2 years. We have seen 11 subdivision applications, which is already 79% of the amount we saw in 2023. These comprise of 440 new residential lots and 2 commercial lots. Additionally, we have seen the advancement of 460 dwelling units through multifamily and secondary suite development permit applications. This year, we are forecasting the advancement of approximately 1,800 dwelling units through the subdivision development and permit phases of the development continuum. These are now ready for the final phase of development in the development continuum, which is building permits. Just some accomplishments in 2024. We have completed the Rolling Trails Area Redevelopment Plan, which was Cochrane's first ever ARP submission to CMRB. We have completed the growth study, which will be presented to council in Q4. We have completed the phase 2 of engagement and launched the draft plan for Envision Cochrane 2050. The final draft will be coming to council later this year. We completed the First Street road closure with the consolidation plan being completed or anticipated to be completed by Q4. We have onboarded myself, the new manager of planning services, and created more structure and better alignment through our planning process. Our outdated technology has created significant impacts on our application timelines, as well as our deemed complete and decision date compliance rates. Additionally, the reduction in our staff is contributing towards business continuity, employee satisfaction, and customer service related risks. Looking at next steps, we are looking into technology solutions which will ultimately help application timelines, introducing more structure to our processes to increase consistency and productivity, looking at succession planning and investments into continuous education. Thank you. That concludes my portion of the presentation. I will now hand it over to Nicole Henne to go through her portion of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Council, excellent to meet you. My name is Nicole Henne. I'm the new manager of economic development. I'm excited to be working back here in Cochrane. Economic development supports entrepreneurship, innovation, in order to contribute to a vibrant community here in Cochrane. The department offers support services to existing local businesses while also broadening Cochrane's sustainable economic growth through business retention, investment attraction, tourism development, and regional collaboration. How much this year? As of July 24th, 2,230 business licenses have been approved. This is an increase of 58 more than 2023's total. Non-residential licenses have the strongest growth at 5.4%, increasing year over year. Business licenses are projected to set a record in 2024 with a 5% increase and, again, still continued growth. Overall, we've seen a 14% increase in total licenses since 2020, which is approximately 281 additional business licenses that have been added. Cochrane has collaborated with economic development partner, Innovate Cochrane, to deliver a $950,000 Prairie Scan grant with funding over the next 3 years. Along with the town's contribution, 30 different mentors, coaches, and experts from the community have contributed to programs with over 260 hours of volunteer time. Programming has continued to advance in the incubator, establishing founder roundtables, bi-weekly expert sessions, and one-on-ones. To date, 21 organizations have participated in business and innovation programs funded or supported by the town of Cochrane. Cochrane Business Incubator currently has 8 companies in residence, and our Smart Start program, which was launched in the spring, will graduate all 7 participants this fall in the upcoming October. The Community Innovation Ecosystem successfully trained 6 participants in partnership with Unbound Thinking and Innovate Cochrane and the town itself. 3 of 8 companies have had their first revenue. 62% of those in the incubator currently had revenue prior to entering into the program, and 25% of those companies have hired their first employee. These are definitely not my accomplishments, but they will be. Community Growth has filled the vacant position of Manager of Economic Development, and work has already started on advancing an updated economic development strategy, which includes opportunities to explore post-secondary partnerships within Cochrane. This expands on the BOLD workshops and XYC design presentation on hidden density from the previous year. Economic development has ensured sustained momentum for critical economic development initiatives despite significant employee turnover. We have decreased safety incidences since the integration of station security. As part of the short-term station sustainment plan, we will be meeting later this month to kind of continue on with this planning. Emerging risks. We have ongoing challenges with business continuity and resourcing, with the transfer of resources from economic development to customer service admin, along with the integration of the visitor information center and the responsibilities as now part of our short-term station sustainment plan. Additionally, we've identified some challenges in data collection and process improvement with limited staffing resources. Currently, 1 full-time staff member handles all of our business licenses for the town. Next steps. Economic development in collaboration with Cochrane Tourism will create a joint tourism strategy with an organizational focus. Together, we will explore current state, allowing us to accurately identify the most effective policies and actions for bringing up the advancement of Cochrane tourism and economic development. We are working closely with Innovate Cochrane to meet all reporting criteria for our Prairie Scan grant, and we have a project charter in place for the incubator leading up to our first reporting deadline in January of 2025. Recommendations for the creation of a Cochrane Station Operation and Programming Committee, which will ensure a greater alignment and encourage ongoing corporate collaboration, will provide clarity and assign resources and responsibilities to the correct subject matter expertise to maintain, operate, and sustain the station programs. As part of our short-term station sustainment plan, increasing workspaces at the station is underway with an intent to bolster activity for the downtown location. That is it for me. Up next is Justin.
Thank you, Nicole. Good evening, Deputy Mayor and Council members. My name is Justin Perrin, and I'm the manager of the Safety Codes area. The town of Cochrane is an accredited municipality under the Safety Codes Council of Alberta. The Safety Codes legislation provides us the ability to employ safety codes officers, permit issuers, to administer the provincially adopted codes and standards here in Alberta. We issue permits and inspect work to ensure code compliance is met for new construction and renovations within the Cochrane's municipal boundaries, both residential and non-residential. With the continued growth within the town, permits and inspections are trending to exceed last year's totals, and overall construction value investment in the community is expected to be an all-time high. Continued support for capacity in our area helps our team continue to provide our legislative services to the community. We have maintained our Quality Management Plan, or QMP, compliance target for permit issuance and inspection scheduling targets, supported by continued process improvement, efficiencies, and staffing capacities. Continued investment in our business unit has reduced our reliance on contract service, all while trending towards record-setting permit revenue due to the amount of construction investment within the community. Within the first half of 2024, we have reduced our contract service cost, completed multiple successful recruitments, maintained our QMP compliance target, supported our employees' continuing education goals, and focused on customer service and communication improvement through ongoing website improvements. Business continuity still remains as a risk, and code non-compliances are trending upwards. As we look ahead, we are focusing on succession planning and continuous education initiatives for staff development and career growth, looking into ways that allow us to utilize our permitting software to aid other business units, and focus on a code requirement education initiative to support owners, contractors' understanding of provincial code requirements. Thank you for your time. I'll pass this back to Mark for final thoughts.
Thank you. So all these objectives together. So Cochrane continues to be a community of choice for investment by the development community, as evidenced by the record-setting volume and pace of activity in Cochrane over the first half of this year. As you have heard, we are on pace for a record-setting year for development in Cochrane. Community growth is projecting new records for development permits, building permits, inspections, reports to council, and annual construction value, which has exceeded $220 million by mid-year and projected to exceed $300 million by the end of the year. We're also maintaining positive momentum at the station and expansion of support for entrepreneurship and innovation. With the recent Prairies Can grant we received, completion of the inaugural Community Innovation Ecosystem Program, and initiation of Smart Start. Looking forward to the remainder of 2024 and into 2025, community growth will be focusing on the following areas, and for the remainder of 2024 and the 2025-2027 budget exercise, which is looking for additional resources, exploring technology solutions and process improvements, investigating opportunities to generate revenue, as well as advancing plans and strategies that align with Vision Cochrane 2050 and improve customer service and service lines. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right. I believe Councilor Reid was first of the bunch.
Yeah, I had a comment, a question of clarity, and then a question itself. So I'm really pleased to hear what I heard about the investment council made in terms of the safety area. That sounds that it's trending in the right direction. And I'm just looking for clarity around, I'm uncertain if we were just pitched a pre-budget request for staff and technology, or if it's just or are we experiencing a challenge in terms of finding and hiring good people and not having enough time to effectively assess the technology that is already currently budgeted. So are we looking, is this a pre-budget request that we're hearing the first pitch of?
Through the chair, I wouldn't say a pre-budget request, but it is just a heads up of what community growth is looking for moving forward. That's correct.
Okay. And then with the economic development and the incubation center, what were the measures of success? Beyond just graduation, what are the measures of success for the incubation center?
Through the chair, Councilor Reid, some of the measures for success as defined by Prairies Can are a minimum number of science, technology, and engineering and math positions created, as well as a number of HQP, so high quality professional positions created through the program. So what we're working on right now is the completion of the project charter that will identify how we'll work with our other partners to deliver the suite of programs of Community Innovation Ecosystem, the Incubator, and Smart Start to deliver on those positions.
I'm wondering if it's possible to get a one-page document, just indicate what the measures of success are and what they were with this graduating class. That would be, I would appreciate that. I think that might be worthwhile in terms of our community, given the investment that council's made on that, in that incubator center.
Through the chair, we'd be happy to prepare something for
Thank
council.
You. Okay, Councilor Federico.
Through Mr. Jericho to Mr. Krasinski. I think that there was a comment, and it says in here that there was a decrease of staff from the past 2 years. I guess I'm just curious, are people moving on for other opportunities, or is there a reason for that decrease? I guess I'm a little surprised that this is kind of the first time that council is being made aware, especially when we know how busy the planning department actually is.
Through the chair, Councilor Fatego, the resources reallocated to an area of greater impact within the organization, and was something that was done in discussion with myself and understanding of the opportunity to address a greater need.
And then I know that it was brought up about licensing, that I believe there's only one person doing licensing, but and I'm assuming that's at the station, that there's one person doing licensing at the station? Is that kind of where it was related to?
Through the chair, Councilor Federico, yes, we have one resource currently assigned to business licensing.
Because I do know that there was some staff down there, but there was some shifting of staff, some people left. I'm just curious as to, and that was quite a while ago, it was a few months ago, so I'm just curious as to why we don't have other people down there quite yet to be able to help out. Because obviously some people, it's not like they have budgeted money for their jobs, right? So is it the fact that we just haven't been able to find qualified staff, or I'm just trying to get a handle on what's happening with the staffing component?
Yeah, through the chair, the comment was specific to the staffing within community growth and economic development. So the previous resources in economic development that were allocated were not responsible for business licensing. They had primarily visitor information center functions, which have actually been transferred to another group in customer service and admin who is helping support us by taking on those functions, as well as trying to help support them with their business continuity as well by ensuring we have a sufficient staffing level in both areas.
Okay, and I was kind of similar to Councillor Reid. I was just kind of curious what the budget ask was kind of looking like, and also whether or not you believe safety codes needs to have additional resources. I look at it this way, wearing a completely different hat that I have. There's some interesting things going on when it comes to development right now, and I do believe that it's hard to keep up with all the stuff going on when you have a limited amount of people doing checks and balances, and that to me becomes a little bit scary because once things are built, you're not taking them down. So I'm just curious from the group of you, do you need more people on the planning side? Do you need more people on the safety code side? Or what kind of is that balance are you kind of thinking?
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor Federico, I think one of the messages we're hoping to convey is the support from council for safety codes and the work of our partners in administration in helping us develop a resourcing plan has had a positive impact on their ability to handle a significant increase in volume, and we do appreciate that from all participants. On the planning side, of course, we are seeing significant increases in volume, which also comes with increases in complexity as the municipality grows over time, and additional resources definitely help us achieve a higher quality of development for the municipality while maintaining alignment with expectations of members of the community, as including the development community.
And if you have challenges in the planning department, have you thought about just like kind of slowing down? I know that that's not exactly an easy thing to be able to go to people, because then you make somebody else angry within the process, but I'm just curious, is there, that thought to just take a deep breath, pause, and just, I'm not saying cancel anything, but just take a deep breath and maybe slow things down so that we're not rushing, because when you're rushing and everything's getting done all at once, I go back to what I said before, the end product is what ends up suffering, right? So.
To the chair, Councilor Vaco, I think in my experience over the past year, I think we've tried to balance ensuring that we meet the expectations of the development community, as well as particularly our MGA requirements for timelines that we're constantly endeavoring to achieve, while also making sure we prioritize the mental health and well-being of our resources and take a long-term business continuity look to ensure that we are not either jeopardizing the quality of the work that we do or the ability for us to maintain continuity of the service levels that have been established previously. So I believe we're taking a balanced approach.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions that I have for now.
Councillor McFadden.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to say, first off, kudos to yourself and to your team. What I see throughout your report here is just increase in efficiency and improved service delivery to our residents. So thank you very much to you and your team and all your team members for the great work. It's much appreciated. And while I can appreciate Councillor Federico's, I was like, let's make sure we're doing it right. I know there are a lot of pressures on you to make sure you are delivering these services in as timely manner as possible. So, any delay in getting a housing permit affects somebody's ability to move in and find a new home. It affects the business that surrounds that, those type of things. So, so first of all, kudos to that. A lot of information presented there, and I was kind of tempted to put a break on after each of your presenters so I could drill down, but we didn't. So we'll have to see how many of my notes I could go back to, if that's all right. What I did hear overall was your challenges, which I appreciate you identifying, and as our colleagues have identified, is it a pre-budget lobby, in which case, well done. But you'd identified the business continuity as a challenge across the board, I feel. And so what is that business continuity? Is that just a staff turnover, or what is that actually speaking to?
Through the chair, Councillor McFadden, I think there are a couple of opportunities. We currently have some fairly outdated software that we manage our planning services department through. So it's not just staffing levels, but of course, additional staff allows us to succession plan and ensure that we have additional backup and support for unforeseen absences, whether that be leave or moving off from the organization. So, which do have impacts, of course, on maintaining levels. Sorry.
Okay, and so when I did hear that, if I understood the presentation correctly, that currently understaffed in both planning and economic development, not in safety codes, but what is your strategy for understaffed? And so, and I'm not sure if I heard in your presentation that those resources have been allocated elsewhere in the organization, but did I hear that correctly, that we've been taking for your team to put those resources to other parts of the organization, or are those resources being reallocated within your department?
Through the chair, I wouldn't say per se taking, as I was involved in all of those conversations,
right,
but have been reallocated to areas of greater need. I would also draw attention to us having a unique opportunity with 2 new members of the Cochrane administration, with the manager of planning services and a manager of economic development. So I believe it's important to involve them in that resourcing plan once they have an opportunity to identify what the greatest challenges are and how best to overcome them, to make sure that it is in alignment with their style of management and approach. So there is, of course, a need, and I think we've dealt with challenges this year with a couple of absences in our management team, but I don't believe that we've put ourselves at a critical level. The highlight is more the plan that we've put in place, I think, with safety codes has been effective and is yielding very positive results, which we are midway through implementation of that plan, which did request additional resources in future years as well.
So it's important for me in your strategy that as your staff is delivering, we're seeing it in the numbers here in your report, that part of your HR strategy also ensures that we're not burning good people out. And so I'd like to make sure that I see these great faces year after year and not like here and gone. So then the other piece I saw, and I think you spoke a little bit to it, was around, you've got new managers coming on, you want to give them some space to kind of develop their own strategies. But has there been a change in service level focus around, at the station, around supporting the tourism and the information booth? I know I received a lot of comments about that, and that it is a missed resource in our community. Can you talk to me about what your strategy is there?
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor McFadden, in the short-term sustainment plan, we believe that we actually were able to provide a more sustainable level of service by the transfer of resources to another area, which provided more consistent service levels. We were staffed very lean historically with the Visitor Information Center, to the point where it was difficult, if possible, to provide coverage for vacations and leaves of absences. This has provided more sustainability, I believe, in both teams. In terms of the moving forward plan for Cochrane Tourism, we're actually looking to develop a strategy that's more comprehensive, working with all partners in the Cochrane community, not just Cochrane Tourism, but also see our partners with Cochrane Chamber of Commerce and Council and Administration to develop a long-term Cochrane tourism strategy over the course of 2025. We'll be looking to charter the work, to start working with them and put some pen to paper, working with all participants to develop a long-term plan that will frame some of the priorities. But in the interim, there have already been initial conversations with myself and the Executive Director of Cochrane Tourism, as well as the new Manager of Economic Development, who stepped in and started fostering a positive working relationship with that organization as well.
From my lens, I think it is really important that we find a way to have that face-to-face engagement for the tourism, visitor information, all those pieces. I think that's a priority for me, and I think I've certainly been hearing that it's missed. And certainly folks have identified the inconsistency that was going through in your staffing challenges, but from my side, that is a priority to make sure we are having that face-to-face engagement at the station. I think my last question for now, and I do appreciate all your responses, in regards to is it the Prairie Can grant?
Through the chair, Councilor McFadden, Prairies Can.
Right, that's what I meant to say. Thanks for that. Prairies Can grant of just under $1 million. Is that the one that was in partnership with Innovate Cochrane?
Through the chair, Councilor McFadden, that is correct.
Okay, alrighty. And again, I just wanted to say I really appreciate these reports and the details in your metrics. I really appreciate being able to see the service levels there. The only thing I know it's buried in here and you did capture it in your presentation, but and it might just be me, but it would be great to see both. I see these reports as reporting on your core work, but if there could be maybe a different report that also highlighted your accomplishments against supporting council's priorities, if that makes sense. All right, thank you for your time, and again, kudos to you and your team. I hope everybody's proud of the work they do for Cochrane.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Flowers.
Thanks for all the information, the updates. It's a very busy area, important, and so much growth and so many changes to deal with that we have a lot of questions tonight. I was really happy to hear about the increase in the applications for secondary suites. So I think that's one solution to affordable housing, and people are seeing it and they're following through. But I'm wondering what the challenges are, and is there any programs available to help people get educated on how to do that, or to programs to help them make it happen?
Through the chair, Councilor Flowers, I'm actually going to ask my manager of planning services to help out with this one, because he sees secondary suites on a very consistent basis and represents the Cochrane Planning Commission as well. Rob O'Clair.
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Flowers. We have pre-application processes where anyone can ask questions of the planning team of specific requirements or anything to do with the land use bylaw in terms of secondary suite applications. So we are absolutely there to coach anyone through that process. I know it can be an extensive process for sure, but the jobs of the planners are to be there as the point person to guide them through that application process.
Good to hear. Do we have any rules about how many can be per block? I can't remember.
Through the chair to Councillor Flowers, we do have in the land use bylaw there is a clause. Sorry, it's in the land use bylaw, but it doesn't actually say a specific number. It is more of an administration discretion of what percentage of the block face, how much of that can be secondary suites. So we do have a mechanism there. I believe the number is, I can't tell you off the top of my head, I'd have to look at the land use bylaw, but there is a mechanism for that for sure. But basically what happens in those situations is we would refer the secondary suite applications to the Cochrane Planning Commission for their review, because then they become the development authority on those applications.
Good to hear. Thank you for that. What other question do I have? I too was concerned about the Visitor Information Center, such as Councillor McFadden was talking about. I've heard things that people are having trouble getting answers to their questions, and that it's not consistent. So I too would really like to see a plan in place for improving that service and making sure it's adequate.
Through the chair, Councillor Flowers, we can assure you that we are looking at strengthening that, and I do want to give kudos to our partners in customer service and admin, who I believe have provided some great, excellent customer service. And to give a little bit of assurance, we've even been hosting some training sessions where we provide opportunities for Cochrane Tourism to share opportunities and about what you can do in Cochrane for visitors who are looking for the face-to-face interaction. However, also looking to the future and asking ourselves, how best do people want to receive information as a visitor, whether that is face-to-face and where the trends are changing. So I know Cochrane Tourism has a lens on that, as well as our manager of economic development.
I appreciate that people are filling in, and I always think face-to-face is the best. especially someone outside the community. What else? And the committee to assist with the programming at the station. I think that's a really great idea. We talked about that way back at the beginning, and I don't think it ever happened, but to bring in experts and have other views on the programming, I think is excellent. I think that was all that I had. Thank you very much.
Okay, last question for me, something I brought up with Mr. Derricott earlier, but I want to bring it up in our meeting today. On the topic of growth, it's our offsite levy bylaw is the thing that's of most concern to me. Just making sure we're keeping up with the plan for our capital and paying for it. Do we know when council's gonna have an update on updating our offsite levy bylaw? I'm not sure if this team would be the appropriate people, but the growth topic is the appropriate time to bring it up.
Through the chair, the offsite levy bylaw is being run by a partner of mine, actually, the Director of Engineering and Asset Services, so I would be remiss to try and comment on their behalf, but
Okay.
perhaps Mr. Hyman has an update, or we can provide another one for council later.
For the benefit of council, we are working on that. It'll likely be in the first quarter of 2025. You will get the update with the updated values. Again, there's been a lot of focus. We work in partnership with our finance team, and they're working on, obviously, we're all working on budget. So that's the timeline that we're looking for to have those in front of council.
Okay.
Early in the new year.
Okay. Yeah, and I just wanted to bring that up because as your report mentioned tonight, we're growing very, very quickly, and we need to make sure we're planning adequately to pay for capital to accommodate all that growth. That's it for me. Anything else from council? Anything else from administration? Anything else from our presenters?
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And that, I believe, is the close of the public portion of this meeting. We do have an in camera this evening. Can I get a motion to go on camera from one of my colleagues? Councilor McFadden makes the motion. All in favor? And we are in camera.